Amazing turn of events. Millionaire discovers on honeymoon his wife had never been married before. Jake stared at the turquoise waves lapping gently at the shores of Hawaii, beads of sweat trickling down his back. He was living what others would call a dream, a brand new marriage to Emily, his college sweetheart, along with the freedom of wealth that allowed him to escape the pressures of his tech startup in Austin. But that perfect scene shattered the moment Emily dropped her bombshell: she had never been married before. Her words echoed in his mind, swirling like the tide that crashed in shallow bursts against the sand. What did she mean by never been married? Why did it feel like a betrayal? He hesitated to confront her. He felt unprepared for the weight of her emotional scars. His well-dressed world of business meetings and tech launches was starkly different from her past, hidden beneath a shroud of strict upbringing and unresolved trauma. Was he even worthy of her unfiltered truth? As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, he felt a mix of disbelief and guilt. Would his wealth ever bridge the chasm created by her past experiences? He needed to understand her but feared the unraveling of their idyllic retreat. Before they could even process the moment, his mother made an unannounced entrance into their Hawaiian paradise, claiming her need to reforge tradition. The sparkle in her eye and her unending agenda tightened a knot in Jake's stomach as Emily stiffened beside him, clearly feeling out of place amid his mother's grand declarations about family values. How could they have planned this perfect getaway only to be hijacked by the very expectation that had alienated Emily from the essence of family? Jake felt a tightening pressure over his chest that grew heavier as he processed the friction unfolding between them. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue with the sun setting and shadows stretching. Jake's mind raced. He thought he could love her out of this darkness. Some grand beachside dinner would open the door to her vulnerability, melt away tension. But what if his well-intentioned gesture backfired? What if his wealth only stigmatized her struggles? His heart sank as he realized that every morsel of extravagance he planned felt irreverent against the backdrop of Emily's childhood, a tapestry of sacrifices amidst systemic injustices, threadbare but resilient. As they sat down to dinner, tension surged, wrapping tight around them. Slivers of Emily's past leaked into their conversation, each revelation amplifying the internal conflict within Jake. The contrast between their lives struck him hard, a dizzying whirl of guilt and admiration. Could love scale those walls? Only moments later, Emily's soft voice, carrying both hope and fear, broke through the turbulent silence. What if understanding isn't enough? Her words hung in the air, unresolved, their weight devastating. In that unremarkable moment, Jake confronted the unthinkable. The very foundation of what he believed about love, wealth, and family was hanging in the balance, trembling as uncertainty loomed. Jake's heart pounded in his chest, a steady drum echoing the conflicting emotions swirling within him. He glanced at Emily, trying to decipher the subtleties of her expression. Her eyes, usually so vibrant, now seemed clouded, caught in the storm of her thoughts. Wealth and privilege loomed over him like an immovable shadow, as he grappled with how best to dismantle the barriers between them. He reached across the table, an instinctive gesture meant to connect rather than isolate. Yet, when their fingers touched, an electric tension swirled, a reminder of their differences, a reflection of everything unsaid. How could he, a product of affluence and opportunity, communicate effectively with someone who had navigated hardship and loss? But perhaps understanding wasn't merely about words. Perhaps action could speak louder, slicing through the dense fog of misunderstanding. I know this isn't how we wanted our honeymoon to go, he began, his voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. But I want to hear about your past. We can't build a future if we're standing on sand instead of solid ground. Emily's gaze momentarily flickered to the golden gray horizon, then back to him. I don't want to bring my past into our new life, she replied softly, her tone barely concealing her fear. But it shapes me. It always will. Tension crested between them, thick as the humid air steering through the tropics. The pull of Jake's innate desire to fix and protect was countered by the nagging realization that only Emily could truly unravel her truths. Hadn't they promised each other honesty, to bare their souls even when it was uncomfortable? But how could she lay bare her soul when all Jake had ever known was a life reinforced by material comfort? With each passing moment, he sensed that there was an urgency creeping into his mind, a compelling drive to forge connection. Could it be that he held more power in this moment than he realized? Could the avenues of his privilege be redirected to honor her insecurities, rather than highlight their disparities? You don't have to share everything tonight, he continued, the ground beneath them shifting ever so slightly as he enunciated his thoughts with care. I just want you to know that I'm here. I want to understand you, and I want us to build this together, whatever that looks like. She hesitated, her fingertips brushing against his before pulling away, a physical manifestation of the emotional distance she struggled to bridge. You say that, but your life is so different. You've never known the kind of heartache I've experienced. I don't want you to pity me. The word echoed sharply in his mind, piercing deeply. Pity, the very thing he wanted to avoid. He was determined to find the nuance in her struggles, to transform his privilege into a tool for empathy rather than a crutch for her pain. We could start simply, Jake suggested, a flicker of hope igniting within him, recognizing that genuine connection began with vulnerability. Let us explore Hawaii together. Show me what you love about this place. Maybe we can create our own experiences and, along the way, discover more about each other. Emily studied him closely, as if weighing the sincerity behind his offer. Would she be willing to trust him? Would she see this as a genuine attempt to bridge the chasm, rather than an escape from confronting her past? The stifling conversation shifted, as the ocean waves seemed to whisper a secret promise of exploration and growth. Emily nodded slowly, the ghost of a smile playing on her lips. Okay. Maybe exploring is a start. As they finished dinner, an unexpected sense of partnership blossomed between them. Jake recognized that this new path wouldn't be devoid of challenges, but the commitment to understand one another felt like a foundation they could finally begin to build on. Yet even as hope flickered anew, doubt loomed. As they prepared for their first adventure, he couldn't shake the feeling that uncovering Emily's past was merely the beginning. The stark contrast of their realities awaited them, and he couldn't ignore the gnawing question that lingered: would the depths of her past rattle them both to their core before they could find common ground? The sun rose lazily over the Hawaiian horizon, casting a warm glow that washed over Jake and Emily as they prepared for their first day of exploration. The vibrant colors of the sky mirrored the storm brewing within Jake's mind, excitement mixed with anxiety. He watched Emily from the corner of his eye, her delicate figure framed against the panoramic view. Her earlier nod had sparked a small flame of hope, but now uncertainty plagued him. As they made their way out of the hotel, Jake decided to take the lead. Let us start with the local beach, he suggested. I read that it has some of the best snorkeling on the island. He glanced at Emily, wanting to gauge her reaction. To his relief, her eyes brightened at the idea. The car ride was filled with light chatter, their words tentative yet laden with the promise of budding intimacy. Jake felt a shift within himself. He was no longer just navigating life through the prism of privilege but actively engaging in the shared experience. The thrill of new adventure brought with it a challenge he hadn't anticipated: the need to let go of preconceived notions and allow Emily's presence to redefine his understanding of partnership. As they stepped onto the sun-drenched beach, the salty air wrapped around them like a warm embrace. Emily held back slightly, scanning the surf and the family sprawled on the sand. Jake sensed her hesitation, the weight of her past pressing down like the ocean waves beating against the shore. Are you okay? He asked gently, hoping to create a space for her to voice anything unspoken. I'm just taking it all in, she replied, her voice steady but her eyes darting across the scenery. It's beautiful. Let us make some memories, Jake proposed, pushing away the encroaching doubts. He led them down to the shoreline, where the water ebbed and flowed, whispering secrets of the depths below. They pulled on their snorkeling gear, and Jake envisioned this experience as a buffer between them and the complexities of their realities. With their heads submerged in the turquoise water, Jake marveled at the vibrant marine life, a world alive with color and movement. Each colorful fish darting past reminded him of the unpredictability of their own journey. Emerging from the water, he was struck by a realization: just as he had to adapt to his environment underwater, he needed to adapt to Emily's world, one filled with unseen currents that shaped her experience. As they dried off, he decided to shift the direction of their conversation. "So," he began cautiously, "what's something you've always wanted to do here?" Emily's smile faltered momentarily, but she took a breath before answering, "I've always wanted to hike the Napali coast." The mention of it sparked something within her, a flicker of joy. "Let us do it," Jake declared, sensing that this was one of those pivotal moments. She blinked at him, surprised. "Really?" "Yeah. Why not? It could be a great adventure." The determination in his voice surprised even him. He was ready to dive deeper. Yet, as they planned for the hike, Jake felt a lurking apprehension settle in. The exuberance in their exchange was shadowed by his internal struggle. The question of how to encourage Emily to fully open up loomed larger with each shared moment. Would they be able to traverse the rugged terrain of her past on this journey? As they drove along the stunning coast, with cliffs plunging into the waves below, Jake felt the weight of the moment. He had committed himself to understanding Emily, but what would it cost him? What pains would he need to confront within himself to build the bridge between their disparate histories? In the midst of these thoughts, a realization struck him: this journey was not solely about discovering the beauty of Hawaii, but rather about unearthing the landscape of each other's hearts. The trip took on a new weight, no longer just an adventure but a deliberate act of peeling back layers. Lost in contemplation, Jake's grip tightened on the steering wheel. As they approached the trailhead, the mountains loomed before them, a monumental challenge that mirrored the emotional journey ahead. The moment felt like a precipice. What awaited them on the trail? Would the trek strip away more than just the comfort of their surroundings? The answer hung in the air, a promise of the unknown that sent a thrill down Jake's spine. He had to confront the truth: the past would not wait, and the time had come to step onto that path together. What revelations lay ahead? As they stepped out of the car, the scent of damp earth mixed with the crisp sea air, invigorating Jake. He adjusted his backpack, feeling the weight of the supplies inside: water, snacks, a first aid kit, all practical necessities for their journey, but perhaps he also needed to pack emotional tools for the road ahead. Jake stole a glance at Emily, her gaze fixed on the rugged terrain ahead, the reality of the hike ahead of them seemingly weighing heavily on her. He had seen this look before, fear masked by determination. He felt an urge to reach out, to anchor her, but he also recognized that this was not a moment for him to dictate the path ahead. "Are you ready?" he asked gently, cautious of her response. Her nod was subtle but firm. "Let us do this," she affirmed, her eyes narrowing with resolve. They set off on the trail, the path winding up towards the coast, steep inclines covered in lush greenery. Each step felt heavy with the uncharted territory they were about to traverse, both literally and metaphorically. As they climbed, Jake pushed himself to match Emily's pace, aware of the silent agreement forming between them: they were in this together, and the terrain reflected the complexities of their individual landscapes. But the trail was not forgiving. As they hiked, moments of shared laughter broke through the effort of ascending, grounding them. Yet, with each step upward, the underlying tension began to gnaw at Jake. He couldn't ignore the fact that Emily seemed to retreat into a shell amidst the beauty surrounding them. Puzzles of her past lingered heavily in the air, waiting to be unearthed. "Tell me about the Napali coast," Jake prompted as he caught his breath against a rock. "It's breathtaking," she replied, glancing away as if retreating into a world only half formed in her mind. "The cliffs are steep, rising sharply from the ocean, almost as if the land wants to keep its secrets hidden." Her choice of words hung between them, rich with unspoken meaning. Jake could almost feel her walls slip back into place, fortified by the memories that had shaped her. They continued to hike, the sound of their footsteps accompanying the clamoring of thoughts swirling in their minds. Jake wrestled with the impulse to pry deeper into her guardedness. He, too, had faced unflinching truths in his life, but they felt like insignificant scratches against the overwhelming terrain of Emily's experiences. He needed to tread carefully. Prodding further might plunge them into a valley of discomfort, but stalling could lead to an emotional standstill. Moments into their climb, they reached a breathtaking overlook. The ocean sprawled out below like a limitless tapestry, the waves crashing against the cliffs, foaming in wild abandon. It was a visceral reminder of the tumult of feelings that lay beneath the surface. "It's so beautiful, isn't it?" Jake ventured, searching her expression for some indicator of openness. "Yeah," she replied softly, her focus shifting from the spectacle to the horizon, an expanse filled with unresolved stories. The sun's rays danced across the water, casting splashes of light and shadow, and Jake sensed this was an opportunity he couldn't let slip away. "This landscape makes me think about all the layers we carry," he said, surprising himself with his candor. "Things that shape who we are. What's underneath your surface, Emily?" She turned to him, her brow furrowing an indication of her struggle to unpack the question laid bare before her. She started, her voice trembling with the weight of her unsaid thoughts. "I feel like I'm always fighting to see the horizon," and suddenly, a loud crack disrupted the moment, sending a shudder through the cliffside. Jake turned sharply, adrenaline surging. Was this a sign? Could this moment catalyze Emily's need to confront her past? He held his breath, his instincts sharpening. The path before them was no longer just about hiking, it was an invitation to a deeper confrontation, a choice between the weight of silence and the relief of revelation. With the ground shifting beneath them, uncertainty pierced the air, while Jake felt an unshakable resolve settle in. He knew he had to be ready for whatever truths the storm might unleash. What would Emily uncover as they faced their own precipice? The echo of the crack reverberated in Jake's mind, a stark juxtaposition to the tranquil beauty surrounding them. He scanned the cliffs, half expecting boulders to tumble, half hoping the universe would reveal its secrets. The moment beckoned with unsettling urgency, a shift that neither had anticipated. "Emily," he said, urgency threading his voice. She met his gaze, wide-eyed. Did she sense it too, the tension teetering on the edge of revelation? Before he could say more, a gust of salty wind whipped up, billowing around them. Jake struggled against it, grounding himself amidst the maelstrom of emotions and questions swirling in his mind. His instinct urged honesty, he needed her to share her burdens, but he also wanted to protect her from the unknown. "Let us keep moving," Emily finally said, her voice steadying. It was an observation, not a suggestion. She turned, taking the lead, footsteps firm once more on the rocky path. Jake fell into step behind her, grappling with the blend of admiration and concern building within. Each upward stride only accentuated Jake's internal conflict. Compelled by an impulse he couldn't quite articulate, he tried to discern strands of Emily's past, searching for the threads linking them both. Hadn't he once felt the same weight? The isolation that came from unshared experiences? "What drives you?" he mused, trying to bridge that intangible distance. "What makes you climb these heights?" Emily paused, casting a glance back at him. Her brow tightened, an armor forged in years of self-protection. "I guess I'm searching for clarity," she replied, the vulnerability of her words clashing against her guarded demeanor. Jake noted her hesitance, the wall still intact. This was more than just physical ascension, they faced an emotional summit. Can clarity be found in isolation? He probed, challenging her apparent mantra subtly. The question hung in the air, and he saw awareness flicker across her face. "Maybe you're right," she admitted, words spilling from her mouth as if breaking through a dam. "But I feel like I can only confront my past within these unyielding landscapes." I thought she faltered, and in that instant, Jake sensed a shift in her, a crack forming in her facade. Her confession ignited sparks of recognition. They were both draped in existential quests, seeking answers cloaked in the shadows of their stories. Jake's heart raced. He was driven by a desire to share burdens rather than let them simmer in silence. "Emily, you're not alone in this. The landscapes may be rocky, but I'm here. We're navigating together," Jake reassured her, stepping closer as if their closeness could stave off the growing chasm between their hearts. Her breath came faster, and the intensity of her gaze pierced through their physical distance. "What if I told you I was always afraid of the truth? she murmured, each word weighted with the gravity of unspoken fears. He wished he could erase her hesitations, his own doubts battling with an innate desire to support her. They were each stubbornly clinging to their hesitance, but momentum had begun to shift. Could this hike become a true exploration of her spirit, one that would propel her beyond the cliffs and shadows? The path before them narrowed, forcing them into closer proximity. Comfort surged between them, but Jake recognized that in such closeness lay the risk of collision, of emotions erupting where words had failed. Fear can be a prison, Emily, he decided, clarity igniting in his chest. But confronting it might lead us to something transformative. With each step, they drew nearer to that precipice, the ultimate trial awaiting them. Would she choose to leap into the uncertainty of her own truths, or retreat back into her protective shell? Just as they approached a particularly steep ascent, another crack echoed from beneath them, splitting the air with finality. Jake's pulse quickened. "Emily," he called out, tension ricocheting in the pit of his stomach. "What if we could change everything in this moment, right now?" But before he could process her response, the ground trembled again. It wasn't just physical, not anymore. Each of them stood poised on the edge of personal cliffs, a decision looming that could alter everything about their journey. Would they confront the storm within and break through their barriers, or would this be the moment that unraveled them both? The ground shuddered beneath them, reverberating with a powerful urgency that sent Jake's heart racing. An instinctual reflex propelled him forward, closer to Emily, as if proximity could somehow shield them from the impending revelation. The fissures in the earth mirrored the cracks in their guarded selves, and as they stood poised in that moment, Jake grasped the weight of their shared burdens more acutely than ever. "Let us keep climbing," he said, an uncharacteristic determination fueling his voice. His resolve surprised him. He had always been the one to retreat from confrontation, caging his emotions in logic. Yet, in Emily's presence, something inside him shifted, compelling him to take risks he once avoided. They maneuvered through the narrow pathway, the air thick with the tension of unspoken truths. Each step felt more significant, a physical manifestation of their emotional ascent. Sweat beaded on his brow, but it was not the exertion that troubled him. It was the growing realization that he had long been echoing Emily's own journey, a quest for clarity amidst chaos. "What are you really afraid of?" he questioned, a little more forcefully than he intended. The ground trembled slightly again, as if anticipating her response. Emily paused, her breath hitching as she searched for the words encapsulated in her guarded heart. "It's easier to fear the truth than to confront it," she replied softly, vulnerability rippling through her voice. "I've built walls to protect myself, Jake. It's what I know." There it was, the admission that resonated within him. He too had constructed walls, turning away from his own truths for so long. "We can break them down," Jake responded, a sudden fire igniting within him. "We just need to decide to face them together." As they pressed onward, Jake's mind churned, wrestling with the awareness that this journey was not merely about navigating the physical cliffs before them. In Emily, he recognized not just a kindred spirit, but also a reflection of his own struggles. He wondered if she felt the same gravity weighing on her shoulders as he did. Perhaps it was the weight of their collective fears that made the air feel so dense. When they reached a vantage point, the view unfolded in all directions, a panorama of rugged cliffs interspersed with serene waters below. For a moment, they stood in silence, absorbing the stark beauty and the vastness of their surroundings. But Jake's gaze remained fixed on Emily, his heart pounding with an eagerness that defied the tranquil scene. "Look at this," he gestured towards the horizon, attempting to steer the conversation into calmer waters. "This is what it means to conquer fears." He pointed toward the sun glimmering on the water. "The view is clearer from up here. We can see beyond the obstacles." Emily turned her attention to the horizon, her eyes narrowing as she took it in, visibly processing the metaphoric implications of his words. Jake seized the moment, his own inner turmoil melding with burgeoning courage. "What if we acknowledge our fears and still continue to climb? What then?" She met his gaze, and he felt a shift in the air, a fleeting vulnerability in her expression. Maybe her voice wavered, but she held his steady gaze. "Maybe I can start by being honest about my past?" The ground beneath them trembled once more, but this time it felt different, prophetic. An unprocessed mixture of anticipation and fear eclipsed the moment. Jake dared to hope that this moment might not just be a physical ascent but an emotional awakening for both of them. Then let us share those truths, he urged, sensing her invitation to strip away their defenses. I'm ready if you are. As she opened her mouth to respond, the horizon behind them darkened ominously, a storm brewing on the edge of the expansive landscape. Suddenly, the reality of the cliffs became more than a metaphor. Jake, look! Emily cried, pointing behind them where dark clouds began to engulf the sun. His heart plummeted. They weren't just climbing mountains of their hearts, but they were also facing an impending storm. Would they retreat back to safety, or could they confront the turmoil together? In that charged moment, one thing became startlingly clear to Jake. It was time to confront not just the emotional heights but whatever the approaching tempest would bring. Jake stood, caught between the rising anxiety within him and the dawning realization that retreat was no longer an option. The dark clouds loomed larger, their threat palpable, as the wind shifted, carrying the scent of impending rain. As if sensing his turmoil, Emily edged closer, her eyes wide, mirroring the storm brewing both around and within them. Jake, what do we do? Her whisper trembled in the gusts, but her gaze was steady, strong with a determination that surprised him. For the first time, he didn't hesitate. We face it, he said, drawing strength from her presence. This wasn't just about the storm, it was about the torrent of emotions they had yet to unravel, their fears tethered in unexplored truths. In that crucial moment, Jake understood that their ascent was both literal and metaphorical. They needed to reach a point beyond the chaos, together. As the first drops of rain began to splatter against the rocky ground, he led Emily forward, a renewed sense of purpose igniting each step. Each stride felt like a conscious choice to reject the familiarity of avoidance, a decision to embrace discomfort. The jagged rocks beneath their feet could be treacherous, but the path upwards was clear. The rain intensified, soaking through their clothes and amplifying the thunder that rumbled ominously above. Yet there was a clarity that came with it. The world dimmed, but their focus sharpened. Jake felt the weight of long-buried fears subside, replaced by the urgent need to connect with Emily in a raw, authentic way. Let us not let the storm dictate our journey, he shouted to be heard above the wind, his voice a rallying cry forged in his newfound resolve. We decide what this means. Emily nodded, her expression resolute, and together they pressed on. With every step, he caught glimpses of her vulnerability, her raw honesty layered beneath the surface. He could feel that she was ready to delve deeper. In this chaotic atmosphere, they would unearth the truths hidden in the shadows. Okay, here's my truth, Jake began as they swerved around a ledge slick with rain. I've always feared that my career defines my worth. I let my failures create walls, just like you. I hid behind my professional achievements, thinking they made me valuable. Emily's gaze fixed on him, an unspoken understanding passing between them. I never wanted my past to define me either. I thought it would be easier to pretend it didn't exist to escape it. But the more I run, the more it follows me, she responded, her voice growing confident even as the storm raged on, drowning out the world. They reached a wide ledge, where for a moment they could catch their breath, sheltered from the worst of the rain. The storm was undeniably fierce, yet it felt like a cleansing. Confessions exchanged amidst chaos breathed life into moments of vulnerability. Here in the rawness, Jake felt an unexpected surge of empowerment. He had never granted himself the permission to reveal his timid insecurities. Our fears are like this storm, Jake said, taking a step closer to her, disguised as something awful but ultimately capable of clarity and renewal. Then let us use this chaos to strip away the barriers, Emily replied, her eyes brightening. Let us be honest with ourselves, starting now. The rain fell harder, drenching them, but Jake welcomed it, feeling transformed. As he prepared to share the pivotal moment that turned his dreams to ashes, a rumble of thunder echoed through the skies, as if affirming his intent. It was in that charged atmosphere, surrounded by turmoil yet illuminated by truth, that Jake realized the next step was not merely to share stories but to maintain that openness that was so often eclipsed by life's uncertainties. Together, he breathed, a soft promise cementing the bond they were forging, we can weather anything. Yet before they could delve deeper, a piercing flash of lightning split the sky, illuminating not just their surroundings but the clarity of their shared revelations. Whatever they faced next, he felt ready, but the looming storm held secrets of its own. What happens if we can't see each other through the chaos? Emily's voice trembled, the anxiety resurging as the shadows deepened. And as Jake faced her, the realization struck: clarity was never guaranteed, and sometimes storms revealed more than just truths, sometimes they laid bare unspoken fears. The path ahead was uncertain, a tangled web of past and present. Could they truly navigate this emotional tempest together, or was this just the beginning of a far greater conflict? As the last echoes of thunder rolled away, the atmosphere thickened with uncertainty. Jake stood frozen, heart racing, the vulnerability of his confession hanging like a fragile thread between them. This was the moment they had prepared for, the moment he hoped would bring them closer, and yet, standing there, he felt the weight of old fears creeping back into his mind, threatening to unravel everything they had just built. Emily's gaze pierced through the dimness, seeking something he wasn't sure he was ready to reveal. He had brushed aside the very real notion that his struggles and insecurities could impede their progress. What if I fail again? The thought curdled in the back of his mind. He struggled against the pull of self-doubt, yearning to push through it. Jake? Emily's voice broke through his reverie. Are you with me? The question anchored him. I'm here, he replied, forcing certainty into his tone. I'm wondering how we can face our fears together if I can't even manage my own. A spark of recognition flickered in her eyes. That's the point, Jake. We're not meant to have it all figured out before we share. It's in the sharing that we find our way. Her words held a mirror to his internal conflict, echoing his own cycles of avoidance. Jake had spent too long constructing narratives in his mind that distorted reality. Dismantling those illusions wouldn't happen in an instant. It required a commitment he wasn't sure he could sustain in the face of potential rejection. I feel like I keep letting my past haunt me. I'm scared of what it means if I admit that. His breath paused in the cool air. My failures, they're real, Emily. They aren't just abstracts. They're part of who I am. What if they're not? She challenged softly. What if your failures are just stepping stones? If we begin to see them as lessons rather than define us, maybe we can manage the darkness that creeps in. The rain poured down, but somehow, instead of feeling heavy, it felt cleansing. Jake stepped back to search her eyes for understanding. This wasn't merely about his struggles. It was about navigating their own demons, both shared and individual. He realized that while he wrestled with his professional identity, she battled her own shadows. Together, they could forge a path of mutual discovery, crafting a future less hampered by doubt. What's beneath your fear, Emily? He asked, intrigued by her sudden strength. What do you think drives you to run away? She paused, her brows knitting together as a flicker of vulnerability crossed her face. I've always thought that if I didn't acknowledge my past, it would lose its power over me. She inhaled sharply. But maybe I've only given it more control by trying to ignore it. I crave acceptance for who I am, not the facade I show to the world. Jake felt the tension in the air shift. It was palpable, their uncertainties tangled together like roots in the dark soil of uncertainty, giving life to a stronger foundation. Would they finally lay bare their fears and use the storm around them to propel themselves forward? I want to confront my failures, he stated firmly, pushing against self-doubt with businesslike determination. Maybe it's time I stop seeing them as chains and start viewing them as fuel. Together, then, Emily affirmed, her eyes lighting up again, filled with a newfound conviction. Let us explore our vulnerabilities, confront the past and unearth the truths we've buried. Let us rewrite the narratives. Challenging the storm outside, they turned their gaze inward, their ridged spirits softening under the weight of mutual resolve. The journey ahead would be messy, no doubt, but a greater truth had begun to unravel the potential for a deeper connection that could grow from their shared honesty. Yet as they prepared to share more and further slice through the thick veil of their fears, a loud crack of thunder interrupted the silence, and Jake's heart raced once more. The storm had weakened their fortitude, but it also spurred their momentum. Here's the question, Jake said, sensing the storm outside, swirling in sync with the tempest inside. What if the truth behind our fears holds the key to our freedom? Will we have the courage to embrace whatever comes next? In that moment, they could feel the weight of impending distractions, the looming rain concealing more than mere droplets. They were entering an uncharted territory of emotional vulnerability, an expanse laced with tension and uncertainty. As Jake faced Emily, his breathing quickened. Would they rise above the personal storms they carried, or would the chaos reign supreme? Behind the tumult, they had no idea how much lay ahead, anxiety swirling, obstacles looming, but one thing was clear: they had only just begun to unveil the buried truths in their lives. And with each heartbeat, the question lingered: were they ready to confront the deepest recesses of their fears together? The moment hung like a delicate thread, vibrating with the weight of an unspoken truth. Jake inhaled, his chest rising and falling rapidly as he sought the courage to turn this intimate turmoil into a shared journey. He understood that just as the storm raged outside, so too did the gales within his heart, pushing him towards something essential. In the dim light, he noticed how Emily's face mirrored his own struggle, her brows slightly furrowed, her lips pressed tight as if grappling with fears of her own. It struck him that confronting their pasts might not only unravel their own demons but also tighten the bond they desperately sought to forge. "I've never really faced my failures head-on," he admitted, the words pouring out like the rain outside. "I've always sidestepped around them, hoping they'd fade into obscurity. But they linger, the fear of failure clings on to me. What if I embrace them and they still taint everything I build from now on?" Emily stepped closer, her presence grounding him. What if facing them, acknowledging them, turns them into sources of strength instead? To grow, we need to hold our scars and see the stories they tell. They don't have to be the end of our journey. Her conviction intermingled with his own insecurities, igniting a flicker of determination within him. He knew he'd never unearth his potential until he confronted the very perceptions that paralyzed him. Was he ready to redefine his failures as the raw material for a richer life story? Jake turned inward, allowing himself to ponder those failures, scrutinizing the shadows that had eclipsed his confidence. Memories slid through his mind: job applications turned down, projects that fell short, dreams he shelved out of fear. But what if he could transform those scars into a narrative that empowered rather than defeated him? "Perhaps the first step is admitting those failures, not just to you, but to myself," he said quietly. "Mapping out what I thought was my failure could help me see it through a clearer lens. I need to grapple with the truth and recognize what it means." As the storm rumbled again, the rain patting against the windows felt like a shared heartbeat of their mutual resolve. They were poised on the cliff of discovery, ready to leap into a breadth of self-awareness. "Let us do it together, each of us, unearthing the past and revisiting those failures," Emily urged. "We won't alone carry the weight, but face it side by side." The thought of shared vulnerability began to solidify his determination. Perhaps, by exposing his deepest fears, he could illuminate the path forward. He reached for her hand, squeezing gently, an anchor in the emotional whirlwind they both navigated. Then it settled. "We'll each confront a failure, something that's not just a memory but a reflection of our paths. We will do it together, examining these moments closely until we can understand their influence on who we are today." "Exactly," she affirmed, a shiver of excitement passing between them. Yet, as they stood ready to delve into their vulnerabilities, Jake couldn't shake the sense that the storm outside was a mere reflection of his inner turmoil. The true test lay not only in confronting their fears but also in revealing the truths hidden beneath them. With resolve flowing through him, he pressed his lips tightly together, bracing himself for what lay ahead. What if, in facing their failures, they discovered not just strength but also latent dreams long overshadowed? As thunder echoed across the sky, Jake felt the tides of change shifting beneath the surface. The moment had come to confront that which had previously held him back. But what did it mean for him to unravel the potential that lay dormant within, and would he be ready to embrace whatever was unveiled? Just as he prepared to move forward, a stray thought crossed his mind. The moment of truth wasn't merely about their failures, it was about understanding the narrative they crafted moving forward. Would they find the courage to share the raw truths of their past, or would they succumb to the hesitation that marred their lives? In the charged atmosphere, Jake finally felt his walls begin to fracture. The storm outside paralleled the tempest inside him, but he understood now that they weren't merely weathering the storm, they were stepping into it together. The air hummed with unspoken resolutions, adjacent to the sound of rain lashing against the ground. "Let us tackle one of those shadows first," he offered, shuffling closer to Emily. "I'll go first." Emily nodded, and her intensity urged him onward. "I've always been afraid of showing weakness in my career," he said, wrestling the reluctance rising within him. "I thought if I presented a perfect image, I'd be respected. But I felt lost, and each time I fell short, I buried the pain deeper, thinking it would shield me from criticism. The truth is, it has haunted me, suffocating my potential." Her eyes softened, absorbing the weight of his admission. "And did that facade ever really protect you?" she asked gently. "No," he exhaled, a quiet conviction threading through his words. "It only isolated me. I defined my worth through success, and now, looking back, I realize that it suffocated my creativity. I felt like an imposter." "But that's brave of you to admit," she encouraged, a spark of admiration lighting her features. With a newfound energy, Jake continued, "There's a part of me that believes I might fail as a husband, too. What if I can't support you like you deserve? Just standing here, I realize how much I need to change, to grow into the man I aspire to be." As rain continued to pour, each drop felt like a cleansing release. The fear of vulnerability transformed into a catalyst for growth. What a strange notion that exposing his incompleteness could lead to strength. Observing Emily, he sensed a similar transformation brewing within her as she processed his honesty. "It's your turn," he prompted, urgency lacing his tone. "If we're going to forge ahead, we need to confront these together." With a deep breath, Emily faced the horizon and began to unravel her own burdens, the essence of her fears pouring forth. "I've always felt like the weight of my past defined me. I thought that if I confronted it, it would strip me of my identity. I've buried memories that haunt me, tying me to a painful childhood. Instead of wrestling with those demons, I let fear push me away from intimacy, even from you." Jake listened intently, his heart swelling with empathy. "But confronting it can free you, Emily. You don't have to walk through life tethered to those experiences. You're more than your past." The rush of emotions began to lift the fog over her eyes. "I've hidden behind the belief that vulnerability was a weakness. That if I allowed myself to be truly seen, would collapse under the weight of judgment. But maybe I need to allow that vulnerability, to feel connected instead of alone." "I'm here for you," Jake affirmed, the warmth between them shifting like the changing tides. "We'll rewrite our narratives together, and I promise to hold space for you. The past might shape us, but it doesn't have to define us." The rain began to subside, and so did the tension. They were no longer two individuals against a storm but partners navigating the complexities of their fears hand in hand. Clarity began to wash over them, as the chaos outside began to mirror the peace growing inside. With renewed purpose, Jake looked into Emily's eyes, and he felt the bond between them strengthen. "It feels like we're standing at the cusp of something profound. We can shape our future from the ashes of our pasts." Emily nodded, her confidence blossoming as she grasped his hand firmly. "You're right. The journey ahead may still hold challenges, but those challenges are ours now. Together, we'll emerge transformed." As they descended the mountainside, the dripping foliage sparkled, the remnants of rain shining like promise shimmering in the aftermath. Jake could feel the profound impact of their shared experience, as if they were sculpting their own reality from the raw materials of honesty and understanding extracted from the depths of their vulnerabilities. Jake understood there would still be struggles, but now he felt equipped. The weight of judgment evaporated, replaced by the warmth of shared trust. He had turned confrontation of his fears into an opportunity for growth. Each step taken with Emily fortified him further. They were no longer just a couple, they were partners navigating the tricky terrain of life. In their shared resolve and radical honesty, they unlocked the potential for both personal healing and relationship profundity. Rather than simply facing the storms ahead together, they would embrace each moment, forging a future unencumbered by the chains of their pasts. This was transformation at its finest, a tangible achievement forged from personal growth that opened doors to mutual respect and understanding. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more people who need to hear these transformative narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your insights matter. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the power of personal overcoming stories together.